from that moment, I was like, this feels like home. This feels like the thing I was supposed to be doing. And I think it ended up all coming full circle as far as it felt like something important.
Hey, my Feel Good friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social Podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I am so dang excited to share today's guest with you because let me tell you, this interview has been a long time coming, my friend. Cassidy is a podcast manager and editor and a Feel Good Social Clubber, which is super, super awesome. But actually, Cassidy and my journey goes way back to when she first started out in podcast editing. She actually joined my podcast editor's team and started editing this show, which is how we met. She joined the Feel Good Social Club after hearing our mid-episode plug again and again and again and thought, man, the Feel Good Social Club is something that I need to join, right? And I just absolutely adore this woman. She is so, so sweet. She has so much knowledge to share. She does an excellent job editing podcast episodes. I can tell you that for certain. And she is just so much fun to talk to. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this interview. Hey, friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social Podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. On this show, we chat about social media strategy and mindset tips with a focus on, you guessed it, feeling good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz. Real quick, have I invited you to join the Feel Good Social Club yet? Oh man, my friend, I would love for you to check out our new monthly membership for down-to-earth entrepreneurs who are ready to create content with ease, actually show up and strategically market your business online every month, and also make friends with rad down-to-earth entrepreneurs who are just like you, who get it, who are in the posting trenches with you, and who are ever ready to give you a friendly air high five or kick in the accountability booty whenever you need it. The Feel Good Social Club is where it is at. Check it out, feelgoodsocial.com/club. In the club, we have a content library full of Canva templates and tutorials and resources to help you make content creation as easy as possible. We also have monthly content planning workshops where we all come together and talk about the upcoming month's strategy for our content. And we also have community forums where you can get together, ask questions of other club members, brainstorm ideas, ask for feedback. So definitely check it out, feelgoodsocial.com/club. Our Feel Good members are seriously some of the most amazing people that I have ever met. And I would love for you to join us, feelgoodsocial.com/club. Check it out. Join today. We would love to see you in there, my friend. All right, let's dive back into today's episode. Hi, Cassidy, lady. I am so excited to bring on the Feel Good Social Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show, honey.
Hey, Kinsey, I'm so excited to be here. I feel like this has been like a super long time coming, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be on the Feel Good Social Podcast.
Yes, you guys. Okay. So just so you know, if I didn't already mention this in the intro or anything, Cassidy and I have actually worked together in the past. She was working for my podcast editor, Emily Porter, and now she is off doing her own thing. She's a member of the Feel Good Social Club, but her and I go way back, and you can thank her for a lot of the wonderful editing that has been done in the past episodes of this podcast. So it's so fun to finally bring you on the show. And I did already introduce you just a little bit in the intro, but I would love to hear from your mouth. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you serve?
Thanks, Kinsey. My name is Cassidy. I am a podcast editor and strategist. I help people-loving podcasters share their stories, grow their following, and inspire others with their podcast show. And it's something that I just absolutely love doing. It's a lovely way to support people. So that's what I do.
Yes. Oh man. And I've loved like kind of seeing your journey. I've so appreciated your help on my journey. Let's be honest here. And I love that phrase, people loving podcasters. I'm going to ask you about that in a little bit for sure. But I always like to start out these conversations by just kind of asking, how did you get started in entrepreneurship? What has your journey looked like? How did you end up where you are today? Another 3 stack of questions, but I know you can handle this.
I think I can handle it. So let's see my journey into entrepreneurship. Gosh, I really feel like it starts like honestly back in high school. Like I remember my mom being like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to study in school? And I really struggled with that question. Because I think even at that point in time, like I remember having thoughts of being like, oh, look at these people that are like, they own this thing, like they own this lawn care business or this bakery or like whatever. I was just like, that's so literally so inspiring. And I'm like, how do you even like, I don't even know how you go about doing that. And I guess I thought at that point in time that it's not just something that you can decide to do and do. Like, I guess I thought that like somewhere along their journey, they were like, were influenced, by like, they just kind of always knew that that's just what they were going to do. And so I felt like, since I didn't know what I was going to do, I felt like so stuck, which is probably relatable for a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people like literally had no idea what they were going to do. So the only answer I could come up with for my mom was like, I have no idea. All I want to do is do something important. Which I feel like sounds like my ego showing a little bit because I basically like I had in my mind, I was like, when people ask me what it is that I do for a living, when I say it, I want it to be like, oh my gosh, like I want the reaction to be like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. That's totally cool. And I think in hindsight, I was thinking about all those times I come across someone who was like a bakery owner and they're like, oh, I own this bakery or whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so freaking cool. Like, so long story short, I did the very traditional, went to college, ended up working in the medical field. I was a radiation therapist. So it is helping cancer patients. I'm treating them with high doses of radiation. So definitely something very, very important. But it wasn't until I had my daughter that things really started to shift for me. Becoming a mom just changes your world in more ways than you can even imagine. But I think it was doing that, like, this probably is something else that's going to sound so crazy, but like giving birth to a human, like to a child is literally like so empowering. Like I felt like such a badass. I'm not even gonna lie.
You are. Just gotta throw that out there.
But it like, after having her and like just the shift in mindset that just naturally happens with that, even like just really made me so much braver in like asking myself, is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? And it wasn't. Basically. But it really made me brave in just like looking into other opportunities and other ways that I could figure out what it is I actually wanted to do for myself. And it's been a long journey up to this point. But I feel like I'm finally getting there.
Oh, wow. That was beautiful. I just have to say that because I love the story so much. Like, I love that. Firstly, I was so resonating with, I want to do something important, like as a little kid, like, because I don't think I necessarily said those words, which like, hell yeah, to you for being kind of insightful as this little kid saying that. But like, exactly, like that's how I felt too. Like I always kind of felt like I want to do something like cool and fun and like feel important and empowered and all that different stuff. And like, what does that look like? Like, it also just like so reflects how amazing little kids are and like how big of dreamers we are when we're at that age where people are asking us, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I want to be a dinosaur. It's like, okay. But you know, like, and then we slowly tend to lose that. And then it all comes back around to, as someone who was not a mom of a human, was not birthed a human child. I also resonated with that, right? And I get it. And I've listened to definitely like so many stories from mothers, like mom entrepreneurs and podcasts who are interviewing those women and all that stuff. And like, it's so true. I think that when you do something empowering in like any area of your life, it like snowballs over, right? Like when you start to be creative in one area of your life, it snowballs over and all that stuff. So anyway, thank you for sharing that wonderful story, Cassidy. I loved it. I think it was so great. So I also know that like your journey into figuring out what kind of entrepreneur you wanted to be has been kind of one of those, journeys as well. Like, what has that looked like for you? How did you finally land on podcasting?
Oh, yeah. Listen, so, when I was first introduced into like this even idea of a whole like online entrepreneurial world, like my mind was literally blown. Number one, I was like, I can't even believe this exists. It feels like something that's like a little secret that the majority of people don't really know about. But I do feel actually that it's coming more and more common knowledge, I guess, to, just regular society. But I really kind of just went into the first opportunity that I came across. Which was bookkeeping of all things. And it sort of progressed from there. But I think, at that point in time, my mentality was like, oh, this is something that I can do. Like I'm intelligent. I can take a course. I have a bachelor's degree from college. So like this is something that I could do. I could learn this and figure this out for people. Great. And then I didn't like it. So I went through, the whole process, and I'm still very thankful for the experience because, is definitely part of my story and has helped me get to where I am today. And it's also been part of my like own self-discovery process, but it really has been a lesson in learning of being okay with saying, yes, this is something I like to do. And no, this is not something I like to do. And that was like a really hard thing for me because I'm such like, I just do everything by the book. Like I do, and like, I just, steps 1, 2, and 3, this is the order of operations. You're supposed to do things. And that's just how I do it. So for me to really kind of own myself and ask myself, okay, but what is it that you want has really been a practice for me throughout this whole entire journey. So I went from bookkeeping that I did for about a year or so, and then into copywriting. So that felt like a big shift there from being something, a little bit more analytical and just kind of number crunching to something a lot more creative, which, in there was a whole other lesson that I learned about myself in that I am creative, not something that I understood that I was. And so I was able to do that for a little while too, and had some success there. And then I came across that same sort of feeling of like, I don't like doing this. And I really like at that point in time, I really, really struggled with that. Cause I was like, how many times am I going to try something and not like it? Like I was like literally like beating myself up. Like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just pick something and enjoy it and just live my life? Right. So after I kind of got over myself a little bit there, I approached, it again, and I kind of looked at it, what was available to me again, and gave myself, another shot, letting myself know that like something is going to come across my way that I am going to really enjoy. So when I did kind of pivot again, I actually allowed myself to kind of try like 3 different things at once and to kind of look into a few different things at once. And I was like, I'm just going to keep trying things. I think that's what it came down to, is like, at this point, it is my life. And it was just a realization that I had to have, and it's okay. And it's like, it's literally safe for me to try different things and to figure out what things I want to do. And if it has to be done by trial and error, then great. Then that's how I have to go about it. But I think, at that point in time in my mind, I felt ashamed of like having to go through trial and error. I felt like all I was seeing, like in stories that I'm seeing from like, I guess entrepreneurs that I felt like were at much different levels in their business than I was or whatever, their stories always seemed to be like something that was very tied to their background. And I don't feel like my story is so much tied to my background. as far as like, what I went to college for or whatever. If I'm bringing it back to like, bakers again, like a lot of times, people who own bakeries are like, they've been baking since they were like 3 years old. Well, I haven't been podcast editing since I was 3 years old, whatever, or if you're a dancer or whatever it is. So I think that's why I felt a lot of like shame in myself for like having to go through such a trial and error process to figure out what it is that I like to do. But thankfully, I was able to take that wonderful opportunity with Emily Porter, your podcast manager, and able to help her out and support her in helping her clients. And like from that moment, I was like, this feels like home. This feels like the thing I was supposed to be doing. And I think it ended up all coming full circle as far as like, it felt like something important for me to do. And I felt like it was important because I don't know that I feel like I have a very strong message, I guess, one way or another to share with people. But the thing that I love about podcasts and podcasters, and especially when you're using it as a platform for the thing that you believe in, the message that you're trying to share, like, I feel like I'm a part of now putting that message out into the world. So now I feel like, even though it's almost like I have different messages that I'm putting out for everyone to hear. And it makes me feel like I'm doing something really, really important, not only for my clients themselves, but for their audience too. And like helping their listeners and their people. So very long-winded answer for you, but
girl,
there you go.
I love it. I'm over here eating it up because, oh man. Well, firstly, thank you so much for sharing about like feeling kind of like shame and beating yourself up for not knowing what you should be doing. And I love too that I resonated so much with like okay, first time, whatever, it's fine. But like second time I had to try something else. Third time I had to try something like that's what people don't talk about is like beating them. Like, we all try to like be as nice to ourselves as possible, but yeah, sometimes like you reach a point where you're like, oh, really? Like the third time you're pivoting. And it's like, no, like that's also still when you give yourself love and grace and you're just figuring it out and it's okay. Also too, I love what you said about like, feeling like you should have been doing this forever, feeling like the imposter syndrome, or feeling like possibly your story and your story doesn't matter quite as much because it's not linked to your background. But I don't believe that. And you did just say that, you feel so happy because you get to help other people share stories and like you don't necessarily have a powerful story to tell. But girl, I've heard like 3 or 4 or 5 of them already, like themes in this conversation. So I just had to say that too, because also, guys, I'm trying to get Cassidy to start her own podcast. Like, I'm going to tell her this after the conversation. Once again, try to help her, like, try to drive that home. But I think that you should. But yes, I love that so much, lady. And I think you do such a great job. And I love too that you've found, that was something that clicked for me so much with Feel Goode Social when I finally figured out how I could find passion in what I'm doing, right? Because with social media, we all know how much I really don't like it a lot of times. Like I roll my eyes at it. I get so annoyed with it, all the different stuff. But when I finally found that angle of what actually lights me up when it comes to all this stuff, like that's what sustains me, right? And so that's beautiful that you found it.
Do you know what your brand vibe is on Instagram? I have a new fun quiz that's just for you, my friend. I, of all people, know how hard it is to figure out how the heck you're supposed to translate your brand to the gram. And with this quick 7-question quiz, we will help you hone in on your brand's personality, voice, and visuals so that you can show up consistently and create content that looks beautiful and feels on brand for you. This quiz is so awesome. It's been a long time coming, and I know that you're going to have a lot of fun with it. Plus, the results will help you show up in the best way for you. If you'd like to check out our new brand vibe quiz, just head to feelgoodesocial.com/quiz. Pretty easy. Head to feelgoodesocial.com/quiz to find out what your brand's vibe is on social media and start showing up there for your brand.
Let's talk a little bit about your messaging, because I know that like it took a little bit of like honing in and figuring out like, who am I serving? Like, what is my angle? And I love your little phrase that you always say, like, people loving podcasters. I help people loving podcasters share their story. Like, how did you end up landing on that?
Oh gosh, that's a really great question. You know, I feel like it kind of comes back to, I guess, that kind of passion and desire for me to just do something important and help people. And so I kind of felt like that passion, are like, I share that passion, I think, probably with my clients, and that it's just like a commonality that we have. And that just felt like the best way for me to describe it. You know, someone that like just genuinely loves their people, their audience, their listeners, and who genuinely just like are trying or wanting to help them improve their lives in one way or another. And that's what I've realized is so important to me. Like, no matter what the podcast is, if you think about it, like, it's typically always serving someone in some type of way, whether it's, you know, purely entertainment. You know, there's just podcasts for pure entertainment, but how is that's bringing so much joy to the person listening? Like, there's a reason they keep coming back to it. So even if it's not necessarily from a business perspective and like helping them specifically market their business or get more clients or whatever it is, it's still serving those people. And it's still important for those people to hear those messages. And it's the podcasters that are using their platform and their voice to help empower their listeners. And so I guess, so to me, to answer your question, I feel like, especially like my clients and podcasters, like they love their people. They love their people, and they want to serve them to the best that they possibly can, and like help impact their lives in whatever way, you know, it helps for them.
I love that so much, lady. And, you know, kind of what I'm hearing too is like describing the passion behind like the people who you want to work with in a way that like is so obvious to them, right? Because it's so funny. Because like, honestly, the first time I heard you, I think on your Instagram profile, I was totally stalking you. I just thought I help people loving podcasters, and I'm like, oh yeah, that totally resonates. And like, part of me was like, that's who I am. Like, isn't everyone that way? Like, I feel like sometimes if you land your messaging right, like to the right people, that's gonna be the thing, right? Wait, there's people who aren't people loving podcasts, like, but like like a lot of podcasts are like data focused, you know, or whatever, right? And so that's what I love so much about it, is that like it resonates so much. I'm like, ooh, that like just flows off the tongue. Ooh, that feels like me. And also like isn't everyone like that, right? Like, wait, people aren't that? Like, I don't know. I just think that means that you nail your messaging whenever that happens, you know?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, because that is, you know, messaging in general. I'm learning that it takes time. Like, it's just going to take time. And that's probably the most solid piece of my messaging that I have at this point. But I think what's more important is that it does resonate, and that does just feel so true to the brand, to my business, to what I'm trying to do. So if that's all that I have at this point, as far as messaging goes, like, at least it feels like a really great start, and something like so foundational that I can really keep building off of. So yeah,
seriously, girl, I'm like, guys, I'm over here like nodding my head giantly because it's true. Also, like, I think people overcomplicate their messaging, right? You do not know how many times my business coach has said to me, are you trying to write, like, I'm trying to write a tagline or something, right? And she's like, are you trying to like avoid the phrase feel good? She's like, you're trying to say, like, describe feel good or say feel good as like an adjective in every way other than saying feel good. And she's like, no, it makes sense. Your Feel Goode Social, say, I help people market their business in a way that feels good. Like, why does it have to be more complicated than that, right? So I just have to throw that out there too, because, you know, sometimes we overthink and we overcomplicate things. Like, I know that's an issue for most of us and stuff. So just want to say that.
But it's so true though, because I find myself doing the same thing with exactly how you're describing it. Like, for some reason, whenever I go to like specifically, write content or whatever, my brain wants to like basically in the most complicated way, try to explain what I'm trying to say, as opposed to just like, if I was literally just on a phone call with you or whatever, I wouldn't have some elaborate way to say what it is that I do. Like, why can't I just use those same simple words and be direct and be like, this is what it is. It's a practice. It's like a mind game. I don't quite understand it, but
it's a mind game. You have to give yourself permission, right? You have to, cause like there's some weird limiting belief or like rule that we're telling ourselves often when it comes to that stuff. And also too, oh my gosh, this is like a super nerdy technical thing. But when I started giving myself permission to use words that aren't really words, I don't know if this is a weird thing for me, but it's something I have done, I think, since I was like a little kid too, right? So like if you don't like naturally just like use words that aren't words, but like if I'm just having a conversation with someone on the podcast and stuff, and I can't think of a way to describe something, or like I can think of a way to describe it, but I'm adding ly to a word that doesn't normally have an ly at the end of it, or like a long ass hyphenated adjective or something like it's fine. It's fine because it gives your brand personality and makes them Cuban. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. And I will say like, that is something that is so relatable for you and your messaging and your brand too. Like I absolutely love that you do that, because it's just real life. Like it's just real. It's not like computer generated. There's no like AI behind what's happening behind the brand. You know what I mean? It's just like a real person trying to do their best for their people.
Yeah, girl, I love it. Okay. I want to ask you, I definitely want to get into like some marketing stuff, because we were chatting before we started recording, guys, and it was super fun. I was like, hold up, we need to start recording. But let's talk about podcasting real quick for anyone, because I'm a podcast pusher, like not like just sharing episodes that I love, but I'm telling everyone that they need to start a podcast. Like I'm telling you, I'm going to try to like talk you into starting a podcast when we stop recording for sure. But like I told Jessica in the Feel Goode Social Club, guess who started a podcast?
Yeah.
Everyone. So for people who are wanting to start a podcast, firstly, I fully support you, my friend, because I think it is the best content that you could put out into the internet. But also like, for people who are just starting out and like wondering what the heck they should do when it comes to starting a podcast, like what are some of your favorite tips?
Oh gosh, my favorite tips. I will have to say probably number one is to really just try to not let yourself overthink it, which is so much easier said than done. I am literally like, if there was a queen of overthinking, of perfectionism, all of the things to literally hold yourself back, I am the queen. Raising my hand here. Maybe other people feel like they're the queen of that, mountaintop or whatever, but I definitely feel like I rank as number one. But anyway, the point is though, to really try and get out of your own way, because when you start going through that process of starting a podcast, I mean, I don't have a podcast, but I can relate it to just, hopping on this interview with you. Oh my gosh, like all kinds of anxiety and terrible thoughts going through my head, nervousness, like all the things. Right. And I think it can totally be something that ends up, accidentally procrastinating yourself, even when you don't really want to. And I don't know about any of the listeners out there, but procrastinating when you don't want to procrastinate is so annoying.
Oh yeah. I totally love that.
It's just like, gosh, why can't I just do the thing? But it is, really trying to, I do feel like it's such a practice to almost like train yourself to kind of get out of your own way a little bit about it. And I wish I had better advice for it, besides like, you just have to keep showing up and kind of keep giving yourself time to kind of work through that. And you will get there at some point, after you continuously doing it. Same with even like posting just content in general on Instagram. I truly do believe the more that you just practice just doing it, the easier and the more natural, the more confident you're going to become. And those thoughts that you had in the beginning aren't going to be there anymore, because it's just going to be like a second nature thing that you're doing all the time. So thing number 2, I would say, is to have some sort of game plan for your podcast? I do feel like there are tendencies to want to just start a podcast because it's going to be so much fun. And like, you just really enjoy being a listener yourself or whatever. But if you don't have some sort of like structure and plan in place before you start, it's going to make it really difficult on the back end for whenever you try to actually produce your podcast and get it out into the world and for people to listen to. You're going to listen back to it and be like, what the heck am I even talking about? This doesn't make sense. And that's how it's going to come across for your listeners too. So I do always just recommend, like, even if you can just brainstorm it with someone, like, even if it's like your spouse or whatever, it doesn't have to be like a business coach, but if you have a business coach or, someone that's going to help you produce your podcast in the first place, like, brainstorm that with them, because they'd be able to bring a unique perspective to you that you may not even think about. And also what's so great about that outside perspective too, is like, a lot of times it is a perspective, not necessarily from the content creator themselves. It's almost from the listener's perspective. So like, in my opinion, for clients, I'm editing episodes and listening to it from the content creation perspective, but it's almost more naturally me. I'm first listening to it as a listener, and how it's resonating with me and how I feel like it's going to resonate with other people listening to it. I almost just feel like I'm just like a super fan of my client's podcast, that I just get like the first listen to it before the rest of everybody else gets to. But I do think that having that different perspective is so helpful. And I would say the last thing, I do feel like audio quality is important for your podcast. I will say that a lot of it probably depends on where you're starting as far as like audience wise goes too, like how big or small of an audience that you have. But having at least just semi decent audio quality is literally all you need. You don't have to like stress yourself out about doing some crazy over the top, home studio. It's not necessary. There's plenty of great affordable equipment that you can get and use to have a really nice clean sound come across. And I think just having a set kind of guideline for just in general best recording practices to use. So things like, it's very simple things, make sure the animals are put up or make sure your notifications are off or whatever. It's just easier for you on the back end, especially if you're editing it yourself, but also if you have an editor too, it's easier for them to kind of go through and be able to polish everything up for you. But with that being said, like, it totally depends on your brand too. Like, if your brand is, I'm thinking of yours, Kinsey, down to earth, real life, real people, real situations, real things happening, a dog barking in the background, like, it happens. It's not a big deal. But I do think that sometimes people will get like hung up on that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I would say what's most important for your audio is like, as long as people can clearly understand the words that are coming out of your mouth, then you're probably good to go.
Yes. Oh, such great tips, lady. Let's see where to start from, like, the first thing you said about getting out of your own way.
I know, because I gave you like 3.
No, I love it. I'm just going to probably comment on all of them though, because like, I always have to say something.
Yes.
but that's so true. All I'm doing over here, guys, is like raising up some like prayer hand emoji sort of things and being like, yes, girl, because I feel that so hard. I think that I 100% think that one of the reasons that I've gotten to where I have in my business with my podcast, we're 2.5 years into the podcast. We're coming up on 3 years, just crazy, right? And it's because I just like put myself out there, right? Like, I get out of my own way. I freaking like, and I do this every day with pretty much everything I do, right? I feel myself getting nervous and I dismiss it. And I tell myself, nope, I swallow and I just bulldoze forward because that's all I can do. Right. I was talking about this with someone else, like thinking back on all the cringeworthy moments that I've had through my business on the pot, all these things that like I put myself out there for. I'm like, wow, you sounded dumb, or you weren't ready for that, or that design was not as like good looking as you thought it was. Kids, like, you thought you were great. Like, that's not exactly like, but firstly, like, clap myself for growth, let's be honest. And secondly, like, you just got to do it. And like, I look back on those cringeworthy moments, and that's why I'm where I am today. Right. So like, get out of your own way. And then also when you can, hire an editor that's going to make you not hate the sound of your own voice, which is what I did when I finally hired Emily and started working with Cassidy. And it was so wonderful, right? When it comes to like the tip about like choosing your podcast topic, having some sort of plan, for sure, guys. Like, with the Feel Good Social podcast, like I knew I wanted it to be social media market, like feel good social media marketing, authentic storytelling for business owners, inspiring stories, right? Do I only stick to social media shit? No. We have Cassidy on, we're talking about podcasting, right? But like having that initial like plan and a way to market the podcast is so, so important. Giving people a reason to listen, having a topic, like certain topics or like industries or whatever to guide you and like have you choose like who to interview and what episodes, like what you talk about. So, so great. And then, yeah, for sure, the sound quality thing. I was just getting Cassie's recommendation on a mic that she's using because I think your mic is better than mine right now, girl. So I'm going to link that mic in the show notes too, just so you guys know. But thank you for sharing those tips, lady. I love it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about marketing. And I think I want to kick off the marketing topic by asking you guys, Cassie is a Feel Good Social Club member. And I love it. And I'm so excited. You actually joined the Feel Good Social Club after like listening to my episodes and having to plug the club in my episodes, I think. So I can't wait to ask you this question, but I like to ask all my clubbers, what is your favorite thing about being a member of the Feel Good Social Club?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I hadn't been editing your episodes for very long, and you were like just launching the Feel Good Social podcast. So like it wasn't even open yet. Like you were just getting people on the wait list, like getting people excited about it. And yeah, putting like just listening to the episode and going through it and editing it and adding, those plugs for it. I was like, oh my God, I think I need this thing. I remember I sent a message to Emily. I was like, is it okay if I buy this from Kinsey? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. But I just had to check. But my favorite thing, I love so much about the Feel Good Social Club. It literally has everything that you need. But I really think that my favorite part about it is the weekly emails that we're getting, which I think is a pretty recent thing that you started doing. Mm-hmm. But every Sunday I'm getting an email in my inbox that's saying basically, hey, it's basically validating my feelings. Like, hey, I understand that posting on Instagram is super hard and marketing your business is really scary and it's hard to put yourself out there and it's vulnerable. Here's 3 things. Like you're giving me 3 topics that I can talk about and that I can choose one. You come with a prompt, you come with a link to a template that you can use. Like you just make the process so simple. And then I think also in doing that too, you are helping your clubbers kind of eliminate that getting in your own way, that kind of negative self-talk and that mindset that kind of prevents you from doing it. And I think not that it eliminates it completely, because you're always still going to have something there, but it gets you like one step closer, I feel like. And that's what I think is my favorite part about it. And I will say my second favorite part about that in particular is that it's almost like it doesn't necessarily stick with like 100%, like here's the strategy and the tactics to go about creating this post. It's so simple and just like, don't think about it too much. Here's something you can talk about. Topic. Here's how you can start it. Copy. Here's a link to the template. There you go. So, and it's just like, I feel like it's just so helpful and like such a breath of fresh air too. And it helps me feel like I'm like not alone in trying to do this and that like you really are in my corner, helping me however you can, even though we don't like specifically work one-on-one together with, social media marketing. Like I still feel your support and like you're there to help me. So that's my most favorite.
Oh, lady. Thank you so much for sharing. I already knew Cassie was going to share that, guys, because we had chatted about this before we started recording, but like, it makes me so happy because exactly like, so I send the 3 weekly content ideas to your guys' inbox every Sunday. They're always kind of different, but they always lead back to a template. And I give a quick script that you could use if you want to, when it comes to a caption. And I always say, here are 3 ideas. I dare you to choose one this week, right? And I'm so glad that you brought that up. It makes me feel validated, firstly, that like, okay, great. This is a great addition as a bonus, like value add to the Feel Good Social Club. But also like, I'm always, I think trying to walk that fine line between wanting to give you guys value, wanting to hold you guys accountable and help you show up on social media in the best way possible, but also keep the Feel Good Social Club as a non-judgmental, easygoing place that's full of love and is not going to make, like, I'd love to help you show up as much as possible, but also not make you feel bad if like you can't this week. Or something like that. So I'm so glad that that's how you feel, lady. And it's scary to show up for your brand, marketing, your podcast, all those different things. Like actually podcasting is, I think, one of the harder things to promote on social media, especially because it is like such a different format. It's hard to share. Also, promotional posts, like in general, do not get as great of engagement, right? Like anytime you're promoting a blog post, but also like a podcast or anything like that, like you're not going to get as much engagement and all the different stuff. So I think a lot of people can feel kind of like, not depressed or whatever, but like discouraged, I guess, when it comes to like promoting online and all the different stuff. Do you have any insights when it comes to promoting yourself online or promoting your show or anything like that? What do you think about it, lady?
Well, I would say in particular, promoting your podcast on social media, that is a toughie. I mean, I think one of my favorite things that I learned about you specifically too, and just with marketing in general, is that, so, there's probably some best practices maybe, but really there's no rules. You can literally do whatever you want. You can literally, I mean, there's strategy and tactics. I think if you're feeling specifically stuck somewhere, but I also feel like sometimes that could almost, well, if you're a perfectionist like me, kind of get stuck in your head and kind of keep you from moving forward sometimes. But in general, though, I think however you want to show up and however you want to promote is just how you should do it, which I think is why we resonate so well together with each other. But I think the same goes with your podcast too. I think, it's definitely helpful to share audio clips, video clips of the content itself, something that's super intriguing, that's, would really grab the attention of someone who might be scrolling and say, oh, that's something that I need to hear and that I need to listen to. At the same time, like that's not a set in stone rule. Like you don't have to share that to be able to promote your podcast. I think, that's probably one of my favorite things as far as editing and helping people with their podcast goes, is that I love the collaboration between me and the client and really discussing how we want to promote your podcast. Like, what do you want that to come across? Like, how do you want that to look? And sometimes that can be, put straight into like carousel posts and like no audiograms at all. A lot of people really love to use quotes. And I mean, I know you said this totally before in your podcast too. People love inspirational quotes. Like that's huge for a lot of people and something that can help with, engagement and stuff too. So I think that's my biggest tip and it's really just a play from your book, honestly, is to, promote it in the way that feels best to you. Because I guess to bring more, to bring it home a little bit more with that is that I really feel like the whole point of that and the whole point, especially too, with your messaging and your marketing too, is the consistency part. It's being able to establish something for yourself that that you can do over and over and over and over again and not get stuck in trying to do something so perfectly and exactly like so-and-so says to do it. You just need to figure out how you need to do it for yourself so that you can just keep doing it. Because the bottom line is people need to know that your podcast exists. And if you're not sharing it in any sort of way, no one's going to know. You're going to keep publishing episodes and they're going to sit there with no listens or downloads because no one knows it exists. And I will say too, with that, as far as like the engagement piece goes, something that I'm realizing too, which has taken me time 100% because it's so easy to get sucked into the metrics of engagement. I know it's something that you talk about a lot too, Kinsey, but I also feel like so much of podcasts and growing your podcast does come from word of mouth too. But that snowball has to start somewhere. So if it starts with someone listening to the audiogram that you posted on your Instagram and they loved it, and then they went and shared it with a Facebook group that they're in, like you probably don't even know that happens. And then how many people did they just expose your podcast to? You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's just those behind the scenes things that we have to like really train our brains to be like, okay, so maybe only got a few likes on this or whatever, but let's keep watching maybe the downloads or something and see how that's increased. Hopefully that answered your question.
Oh my gosh, totally. I'm so glad you brought it up with this topic too, because this is something that fires me up. And I feel like we've had this conversation before too, right? Where, oh man, I could get fired up about this topic. I'll try to keep it kind of concise, guys, but because there are so many metrics that we cannot track, that there's so many returns on investment that we have no idea are happening behind the scenes. And this is why I get so annoyed with people who only focus on the views, only focus on the likes, only focus on the follows, only focus on whatever the heck the metric is, because I really, really think that it's so easy to get caught up in the numbers and become discouraged and get down on yourself and then stop, and like, I've had so many flops. Like, honestly, my weekly podcast promotion reel, I love them so much. I continue to post them. I share them, especially if it's like a guest interview and it's a video clip. Awesome. But like, they are my lowest performing posts as far as the metrics that Instagram shares with me. But they are very shareable. They're great, like reminders for people to like pop onto your profile and see. And I often remind people too, the action that people take on promotional posts, such as blog posts, such as sales posts, such as whatever, is not that like or comment or whatever it is. Like, that's the least likely metric to happen, because like the call to action is to go listen, right? Also, it's not like, I will fully admit that I doubt most people are seeing my post on Instagram and immediately going to listen to the podcast, but it's a reminder, it's a touch base, right? For them to go listen to it later, or be like, oh yeah, like there's a new Feel Goode Social podcast episode out. Like, I got to go listen. And you never see those metrics. You never get that affirmation, like as a podcaster, like, the fact that like you can't comment on people's episodes, like podcasting is not a social platform. Like, it's hard, it is hard. Like, you feel like no one is out there. Like, I see all these downloads every month, and like, I'm like, I don't know who these people are. Like, are they lying to me? Like, is Buzzsprout lying to me with these metrics? Like, what is happening? But like, they're happening. And I always get so like, I get so lit up every time I get a message from someone. I've been listening to your podcast. I absolutely love it. I listen on my way to work. I have no idea who this person is, but like, there's so much happening behind the scenes. Exactly. People can post in the Facebook group. I've had that happen before too. And I'm like, I did not even know that was a thing, right? Like, so just remember that like the insights are great somewhat for like giving you insights into what might be working and what might not be working and all the different stuff, but like, they're not the end all be all. And I think that like these metrics that we can't track are the most valuable, right? Those are the metrics that are driving sales. Those are the metrics. So just keep showing up. Thank you for sharing that, lady.
Yes, 100%. And I'm so with you in everything that you just said. And it makes me so happy that you do. It is so nice when like, you don't think that anything's happening, but then all of a sudden you get a message and you're like, oh my gosh, I am making an impact. I am making a difference. I am helping somebody. Like, that just makes you feel so, so good. And it made me think too, I wanted to mention as well, I do think that we can be skewed by like large numbers and wanting to have a super large number. But in reality, if you like put it in perspective on like your goals of your podcast specifically, and if it is to help drive your sales or to sell more of your services or your product or, whatever it is, how many people do you really need? Like, and it does, even for those listeners too, I think it's almost more valuable to keep a consistent number of listeners and to keep nurturing them through your content, because they're just not ready yet, but they will be, you know what I mean? So I think those are definitely important things to try and keep in mind too. All difficult things to keep in mind, because our brains are wonderful and love to sabotage us in all kinds of ways. But I mean, but it's true. And it's really, it's definitely like a practice of like my business coach told me, she's like, you need to start imagining a stop sign. Like stop yourself, just like you said earlier, like literally stop yourself and bulldoze through because it is making a difference.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I just give you a little bit of an indication. Like I get on average, like 100 downloads to 300 downloads an episode myself. Like, like, and it depends. Like, and another thing I love about podcasting too, is that people go back and listen to old episodes, right? Like, it's not like it gets lost in the Instagramosphere, and it's gone after 24 hours and no one cares about it anymore, So like, so it just depends. But like, literally, like when I started working with Emily, I was like, I had no idea. Like people don't really give up podcasting numbers and the statistics and stuff when it comes to that stuff. And Emily, like, I didn't really think I was doing a good job very much, right? And Emily was like, you are killing it, lady. Like you're doing a good job. Like I am. Like I have no idea about these things, right? And so just like always remember that exactly, like it doesn't matter how many downloads you get. Like all we hear people boasting about are those big numbers, like 1 million downloads every episode or whatever it is. It's like, no, like you can be successful and host a successful podcast with just getting like however many episode downloads that you're getting. And like, I always love to bring it back to the individual. Thank you for doing that too, because, and especially with podcasts, it's like, damn, like if you can just reach one person that day, change their day, like how many customers do you really need? Also, I loved what you said about the nurturing, like that happens all the time. Like, people just aren't ready to buy from you, but they love hearing you every week. They're getting more accustomed to you. They're trusting you more. You're nurturing them and they'll eventually be ready to buy and or recommend you to their friends, right? Which is just equally as valuable. And so just remember all these metrics that like we can't don't compare yourself to other people. Like it doesn't matter like how small beans you think you are. I think it's like so great. Like, and I absolutely love the podcast because I just feel like I'm like showing up and talking to my best friends every week. You know what I mean?
Totally. And that's so awesome. And just like what you said, like if you can impact one person, like, would you still keep showing up for that one person? Of course you would. Like, yes, 100%, because you are helping them. Like, that probably ties it back to, specifically my ideal kind of client is people loving. Like they're going to keep showing up for whether it's one person, 50 people, 100 people, 300 people. Like you're just going to keep doing it because it's what you love. And that's how you like to serve.
Yes. I love that so much. Cass, thanks for coming on the show. I knew I was going to love this conversation. I'm so excited to share it. Can you please tell everyone where they can connect with you, learn more about you? Because I know they're going to want to do that.
Yes, 100%. Oh, I'm so excited to meet anyone who found this episode enlightening, relatable. You can find me on Instagram. That's going to be your best place to find me at episode ready. And then there too, you can find a link to my website just on my Instagram itself. So, and that's the best way to connect with me.
Yes, and we will link everything in the show notes below. And okay, Cass, this is a new kind of thing that I've been trying with the latest interviews. She's like, I got the deer in headlights. I was like, oh God, she knows the format of my show. She's like, what is she going to ask me? Okay, I've been asking people like, is there anything that like words of wisdom or any thoughts that you would like to send us off with today, like to share with the Feel Goode Social podcast listeners?
Oh my gosh. Wow. I love this edition. Let me see. I think what I would like to share is for all the listeners out there who are feeling really stuck in like perfectionism, into overthinking, analysis paralysis, like really try and take a step back, almost like what I found to be really, really helpful lately is to really detaching my emotions from the task that needs to be done. So I first like to think, okay, these are the goals that I'm trying to hit right now. And if I'm going to hit these goals, I'm like, okay, reminder, here's my goal. So part 2 of that, okay, if this is my goal and this is the task that needs to happen, I'm going to detach all the thinking and the emotions that I'm having about the specific tasks I need to do. And I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to mark it off the checklist and I'll move on to the next thing. Because you know what? Most likely you're doing this or trying to achieve these goals, maybe on part-time hours because you have a family or another job or whatever it is you need to do. So your time is limited to begin with. Or if you just don't want to spend 24/7 working on your business, like that's another huge point too. So it's really helpful, or I found it really helpful for myself to, especially lately, detach the emotion. That's my best way to be able to get past my overthinking so far and just do the task, move on from it, and then get on with your day. And then go hang out with your dogs or your kids or do something for yourself.
Yes. Yes. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the show, honey. I love chatting with you.
Thanks so much for having me, Kins.
How sweet is Cassidy, you guys? I absolutely adore her. And I totally forgot to ask you at the top of this episode to share the episode if you enjoy it. So if you did enjoy our conversation, please share this episode with another biz buddy who could also use to listen to it, and or screenshot this episode and share it to your Instagram stories. Make sure that you tag both me and Cassidy. I'm at Feel Goode Social and Cassidy is at Episode Ready on Instagram. If you screenshot the episode, share it to your stories, tag both of us. We would love to see it. We will reshare it and we will spread some love right back to you, my friend. Okay, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will catch you next time I catch you. Thanks so much for listening, my friend. For show notes and a whole lot of other awesome freebies, visit feelgoodesocial.com. Simply go to feelgoodesocial.com for all the goods.